Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. Hello everyone, and welcome to Wealth Pathways, the Affluence Science Insights Podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week, we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Marie Stella, coming to your ears from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's learn together. Hello and welcome back to the show. Understanding consumer behavior is not a luxury, but a necessity for businesses seeking to thrive. And this extends to digital marketing. In this episode, we'll cover everything you need to know about how consumer behavior intersects with digital marketing and how to leverage this for flourishing business. To guide us through this is marketing lecturer Haroon Iqbal Maseeh from Griffith University. But aside from his duties as a lecturer, Haroon has served as guest editor for the Journal of Consumer Marketing and is currently guest editor at Psychology and Marketing. So welcome, Haroon. Thanks for joining our show.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. How are you going today?
Yeah, very well, actually. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good to hear. So to start, what is consumer behavior? How would you describe its role in digital marketing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So normally when we talk about consumer behavior, sometimes we overlook very important factors that are considered in consumer behavior. Now, in every business, be it whatever industry, we have consumers. Now, consumers are different from customers. Therefore, understanding consumer behavior is like getting to know the people you want to interact with in your business. Now, this brings me to the point what consumer behavior is. Consumer behavior is how consumers perceive you as an organization, what they think about your industry, what they think about the products you produce, how they look at your brand, how much trust they have in your brand, and how often they are likely to consume the products that you sell. Now, those products can be physical products or services. But when we talk about consumer behavior, it covers from very beginning when we initiate the designing process of our products. We try to sort of understand how people consume the product, in what circumstances they consume the product. Is the product a collective consumption product or an individual consumption product, right? So getting to understand how consumers interact with you, how they respond to your marketing campaigns, how they use your product, that all comes under the umbrella of consumer behavior.
Yeah, that sounds like a fantastic introduction to what we'll be talking about today. But before we go further into detail, I would love to get to know you better. So this is Have You Met Haroon? And my first question for you is, what do you like to do in your spare time?
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, I don't get free time much often, but considering my academic commitments, my research, and other services that I'm doing. But if I get a chance to spare some free time for me, I usually watch movies, comedy movies. It refreshes your mind. So, that's what I do.
Yeah, that's so fair. Are there any movies that you've enjoyed recently?
It's a Bollywood movie. So I like, I have a favorite character, Akshay Kumar from Bollywood.
Mhm.
So this movie was Houseful. So I watched that movie. It's a very comedy movie. So I think a few days ago.
That's so interesting. I have watched a couple of Bollywood movies before. I don't remember exactly what the names were, but they've always been so happening. Do you have any recommendations for us?
Yeah, I think it's an old movie, PK, letter P, letter K. PK movie is about a character. Character is an alien who has come to the Earth, and he's trying to understand how people live here on Earth. So
Yeah.
it's a very interesting movie, very funny. But I would highly recommend watching that movie.
Yeah, I love the sound of that. So apart from movies, you mentioned before that your academic commitments do keep you pretty tight scheduled. So, what sparked your interest in consumer behavior and digital marketing? What drives your passion for it?
Yeah, it goes more than a decade back. When I completed my 12th grade education, we have a family business. We have pharmaceutical business. And my brother, who was looking after business at the time, he recommended me to study business. So that is a broader area. Then I started my undergrad. As I progressed in the fourth year of my undergrad, in my university, we had three different specializations. I could do marketing, which covers consumer behavior, or I could choose human resource management or finance. Having studied around 30 business courses at that time during my undergraduate, I found my passion in marketing. The way things work in marketing, it's about teaching and learning, about research, about understanding your consumers or marketing or promoting your product to the target market. So when I studied those courses, I think I realized that I am made for it. So it is. It was around 2014 when I was doing specialization in my undergrad. I chose marketing. Then in my advanced study in my postgrad, again I specialized in marketing, my master's. And then finally, I wanted to reach to the top, in marketing in my field. So I decided to pursue a PhD. Yeah, so that's my journey.
Wow, that's pretty wonderful. And in your entire journey throughout all of this, has there been someone or a few people that you found to be particularly admirable and that you've looked up to throughout your yeah? I already said journey, so I'm not going to say it again.
Um, yeah, I think I can't specifically name, but over the years, when as I progressed in my academic studies, there were many people who influenced me. I was impressed by the way they work in academia. And because I'm mainly from academia, so I will talk about academics, right? I hope that is fine. Yeah. So there are a few people in academia, specifically in marketing, who are doing really, really great work. Those academics are based in United States, but I really look forward to working with them in the future. To name a few, we have Professor Robert Palmatia, who is a well-renowned scholar in marketing, and yeah, he's a great source of inspiration.
Ah, that's really interesting. I've never really associated um for some reason I've never associated like scholar with marketing. So tell us a bit more about what this person's work is like and what they're most notable for?
As I said, when we are in the industry, we know who is doing what. But of course, that is understandable in other industries. People may do not know about specific personnel who are contributing to a field. So talking about Professor Maseeh, he's a marketing professor at University of Washington. And he has contributed a lot in the domain of privacy, in the domain of avatar marketing, right? So he has theoretically advanced the knowledge by publishing his scholarly research in top-rated marketing journals, and of course, which has implications for marketing in the industry as well.
Yeah, all right. Well, it's been great to get to know you. I feel like I know a bit more about you now, and I am ready to get into the interview if you are.
Yeah, I am.
All right. So, for starters, what does affluence mean to you?
So because we are talking about businesses, so let's say affluence, I would say it's not only about money, having access to financial resources within a business. It is also about your customer base. It is also about social affluence, which means how strong network we have with our consumers. It means how loyal our consumers are, because consumers are the one who are bringing all the financial affluence, right, to the business. So it goes beyond financial capability. It goes beyond access to financial resources or wealth or, bank accounts a business has, but it is about how rich their consumer base is. When I say how rich consumer base is, it means how wider their consumer base is, how happier their consumers are, and how satisfied and loyal they are with a business.
Yeah. And how would you describe the role of consumer behavior insights in affluent businesses?
So I think we normally say consumer is the king in a business. Now, getting to know a consumer, understanding what consumers want, what their problems are, that we need to resolve by offering our products or services to a consumer. Having that understanding gives businesses a competitive advantage, because if we know our consumers well, we know what they want, we know what their needs are, we are well positioned to design a product, to offer a product to consumers that better addresses their problem, that satisfies their needs, which means that consumers know that business A is well positioned to address their needs and wants, that will attract consumers towards the business, will keep them loyal, and it also helps generate positive word of mouth about the business, right? So having a basic understanding of when, why, and how consumers consume a particular product, then designing that product in a way consumers want, will help businesses flourish, which again refers back to the affluence. A business has affluence because they have a strong consumer base.
Yeah. So what are some examples we can see, real life examples that we can see this playing out in?
I would like to quote an example of, say, in smartphone industry, Apple. Now, these days, when privacy goes and, everyone is concerned about how our personal information is being traded in the markets, because the future of market is not oil, it's data. It's who owns the data, right? Now, considering we store everything in our small gadgets, small smartphones, Apple has a fantastic privacy policies or the mechanisms that help consumers keep control over their information. So Apple has understood what consumers want in terms of protecting their information, and Apple is doing a fantastic job by adding firewalls, by adding multiple features that help consumers control the information that you want to share with, say, an external provider. So
Mhm.
I think that is a very good example. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I do agree with you on that. I think Apple's a great example. I personally, the reason that I use Apple products in the first place is because they connect so well across multiple devices, and that's personally something that um I value a lot, and I think that Apple has nailed that. Because I see a lot of my friends sometimes, there are some pitfalls with Apple. There are disadvantages, drawbacks to Apple. With every release, there's certain things that I don't necessarily agree with. However, the one thing that remains very consistent is how smooth it is when you connect Apple earbuds to an iPhone or to a MacBook. That when I switched over to a different, like, third party set of earbuds, it just didn't work nearly as well, even if I was connecting it to PC, which is not an Apple product, but it just didn't connect as easily or as smoothly. And that's not to say Apple's the best or anything, but that's, I think, right there, a pretty clear show that they understand what the consumers need.
Yeah. So this brings me to another point, convenience or ease of use that we call. Now, giving consumers everything in the plate will also have a positive effect on how consumers think about the brand. And of course, when we talk about that generally people are happy, if I look at it from scholarly perspective, when we carry out a research, we look at 95% confidence level, which means that if we are proposing a finding that is true for 95% of the times, this means that majority of the consumers will be happy. But obviously, we have around 5% of those who may not agree with the facilities or the technological advancements or the convenience that is provided by Apple or any other product. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, what would you say are the key factors that drive consumer decision making in our digital age?
Um, there is personalization, very important. How personalized a product is, how better it fits with the needs and wants or the checklist that a consumer has. It also is about, as I said, convenience. It is about user friendliness. There should be no complication, right? Then it is about affordability, very important factor, considering the in the recent times what is happening with inflation everywhere. So affordability plus reliability of the product or the solution that we provide to consumer. If we combine all these factors together, it is a very nice package to retain customers.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you brought up affordability as well, because with our previous example of Apple, it, it's not quite affordable, but they have nailed everything else so perfectly to the point where they can charge a much higher price. And the consumers who have been following them all the way through have now gotten used to what they can offer and aren't willing to give that up. Are there any examples of such businesses that you can think of?
Yeah, I will start from Apple's example. I was using iPhone 7 for many, many years. And I decided to upgrade early this year. And I upgraded to Apple 15 Pro Max because they didn't have launched 16 yet at that time. But the money that I spent on buying Apple iPhone 7 at that time, although it was, a big money, but I spent that money, and the product that I bought, it worked for many, many years, which means if we divide the total cost by the number of years I have used, it is very affordable considering how protection is important when designing Apple products, how different features are clubbed together. So I think that is still affordable. But in addition to that, some other examples, if we talk about, that can be in our everyday grocery items. Now we have multiple providers who are, producing grocery items, but the cost of each brand is different. Now, I wouldn't specifically name those brands, but we have competitive brands. But because of the brand name, the prices go up. But on the other hand, we have a similar product that does not have that particular brand, but the cost is much, much less that a consumer has to pay. Mm-hmm. This means that many times it is not only about what the product is, because the basic functions of the products may be the same. Say yogurt. Now, yogurt is yogurt. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter which brand is producing yogurt, but ingredients are the same, but it is sometimes the brand that increases the price, which means then yogurt is not affordable by a larger proportion of a particular population. So it is not always ingredients, but it is about the brand name, because a brand has developed a strong consumer base. They know people trust them. They increase the price.
Yeah. And how would you describe how evolution of technology and digital platforms have changed the way that we interact with brands?
Yeah. So specifically, COVID was a landmark when everything moved to online platforms, and we were doing a research. It was on online food delivery services. This means that when food is delivered, we order food through apps or website, and then it is delivered either by a rider or through drones, right? So after COVID,
drones? I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. So, we recently published a paper on that. It was in the International Journal of Hospitality Management. So that is, that is interesting topic.
Oh, that's interesting. Where did that happen?
So in India, there are many restaurants that are delivering through drones, and many other countries as well.
That is really interesting. Okay, anyway, you were back to the topic. You're saying.
So why they need to use drones? There was a delivery challenge by Domino's in India. They said that if you order a pizza now and it is not delivered in 30 minutes, you'll get the pizza for free. Mm-hmm. Now, that is the promise that Domino's is giving to their customers. Now, traffic in India, if we simply Google search, we will see how traffic is in India, right? It's not as organized as we see here. Anyways, so to overcome those challenges, businesses or restaurants, they had to come up with an alternate way of delivering food to consumers on time, because otherwise they'll be giving free pizzas to everyone, right? So that's how drones concept came in.
Wow. That is so creative.
Sure.
Amazing. Okay. Wow, that's just actually really mind-blowing to me. And this catch on with other brands as well.
Yes. Yep.
Wow. And is it a norm now that COVID has passed?
Yes. Now, because it is convenient, it saves a lot of cost. They don't need to hire someone to deliver, and it is timely. No hassle of traffic or getting the food wasted because it is cold, can't be taken. So this is now very, very common, and it has proven to be a successful strategy.
Yeah. Wow. That's just something that I've never even heard of before. I wonder if anywhere else in the world does this.
There are some other countries, but it is most common in India. Other names are not on top of my
Yeah.
brain at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now that we've talked a little bit about what consumer behavior is and the importance of it, let's talk a bit more about how businesses can do this, what they can do to incorporate consumer behavior into their practices. So, through what avenues can marketers effectively gather and analyze this data?
Yeah. So, as I said earlier, the future is the wealth in the future is data. Those who own the data, they will survive, right? Now, there are many platforms. We have a concept of big data. Now, big data means we have consumer generated content available online on several platforms, say in the form of customer reviews, customer ratings of a business. Now, to better understand what consumers feel, what problems they have with a particular business operation, say delivery of food, for example, advertisement, or customer service. So, in any of the area, to better understand what consumers think about the business, the one of the fantastic platforms that we can refer to is consumer generated contents on social media, on businesses social media page or website, if there is an option to let consumers post their reviews, because that is word of mouth. Before the advancement of digital technologies, word of mouth was not online. It is when consumers talk about a business in face to face, right? But now, when consumers have purchased a product, they will share their experience online with wider community, say on Facebook or Instagram, or if they are even installing a particular smartphone app, there is an option that they can write a review about the performance of the app, which shows what they feel, what they experienced, how satisfied they are with any aspect of a particular product. So, gaining access to customer reviews, customer generated content on a publicly available platform will give deeper insights. And then, if we know the insights, we can analyze and we can make better decisions to address the problems that consumers have about the brand or the product.
Yeah. It sounds like even if there are negative reviews, that can be a good thing. That means there's room for improvement and that people actually care enough to leave a negative review.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there is an old saying, we say that a satisfied customer will tell about the product or the business to 3 other individuals. But if a customer is not satisfied, they will tell to 13. So negative word of mouth spreads even faster. Same goes in the online or digital media. And also there is a research that shows that if there are only positive reviews, then customers are likely to doubt that why there are only positive reviews. And if there are a mix of reviews, positive and negative, that looks genuine, that means that there are customers who are not satisfied, but then consumers also look at what business has done to address the problem of those who had posted negative reviews. If there is a solution that satisfies that customer who was not happy earlier, and other customers will look at that, and that will generate favorable attitude toward the business, although initially there was a negative review. Hope I wasn't complicated in that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I do that same thing as well, where if a business replies in a favorable manner to a negative review and seems respectful of it, willing to improve and hear customers out, I usually would be more inclined to give it a go, give it a try, because it shows that the business actually cares about their customers and what they have to say. But are there any ethical considerations involved in collecting and using consumer data?
Yeah, that is a sensitive topic. And because I research in digital space, I did my PhD in consumer privacy, specifically in the digital space and smartphone apps specifically. So yes, there are ethical or regulatory considerations that should be addressed when using customers' data. Now, it is important to note that some data like biometric data that we have, eye tracking data or facial recognition in public spaces, right? Public CCTV, we record those sort of data, that is biometric data. Now, there are some serious regulations that restrict consumers to use that data for a purpose that is not disclosed to customers. For example, say if I visit a shopping mart, say I want to buy groceries, I go to Woolies, and they have their CCTV. They track what a consumer's looking at, what a customer, what areas, what aisles a customer goes from one after the other. That is tracking biometric data because they can recognize me as a consumer. And if that data is used for research purposes that was not disclosed to me as a consumer, that is unethical. And there are regulations that are that restrict businesses using their data. But talking about data available on social media about consumers, as long as we do not disclose information of individuals publicly, or as long as the data is encrypted, where the identity of the original participant of a discussion or comments in social media, where their anonymity is maintained, that will minimize the likelihood of any ethical constraint to be involved in research. So if any data collection organization protects participants' anonymity, if they do not use the data for any unauthorized secondary purpose, they're all good to go.
Yeah, that kind of just sounds like what you would do to a friend. So like if a friend shares some kind of confidential information with you, tells you something in confidence, if you're going to tell someone else about it, you disclose to them first, like, hey, could I tell this person? It's just kind of, would you say that using that frame of mind would help with guiding that?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. And this reminds me, we have a theory in privacy. It's communication privacy management theory. That means that as an individual, I have all the rights to protect my personal information and not to disclose with anyone. But should I choose to disclose, I make that other person or organization the co-owner of my personal information or my privacy. Now, that co-ownership that is between a consumer and an organization, there are some rules and regulations, there are some policies that bind that co-ownership. Those policies are, say, privacy policies of businesses or apps that we use, and any other conditions that are given or agreed upon by both parties. Now, if both parties, owner and the co-owner, respect those policies, those conditions, everything will go well. But if the co-owner violates any condition listed in the privacy policy, or if any of the condition is violated that both parties agreed upon, then the agreement of business to be the co-owner of consumers' privacy will no longer stand. The reason is they do not meet the conditions, right? So the same thing happens in our social circle. If I trust someone, I would say, hey, I have this information. Can you please keep it to yourself? Now, that is keeping to yourself. That is the policy. That is the condition that we agreed upon. But if if the other party, who is now the co-owner, does not keep the information to himself or herself, that means the condition is violated, which will cause turbulence. That is what communication privacy management theory explains. And this is given priority within an organization. Take any reputed organization who are involved in collecting consumer data. They will have a list of privacy policies. They will have the whole privacy policy page, which as a consumers we do not read because you know how it is.
Yeah, it's but, just a wall of text sometimes, and it takes a while to get through.
Yeah, yeah, but it explains all those conditions.
Yeah. So let's talk about how these consumer behavior insights are then applied to digital marketing campaigns. We talked a little bit about how we could look to social media and consumer-generated content. How would these then be translated into a campaign?
So I will refer back to one of the research project that I was working on. We got it published in 2021. It was about advertising through mobile phones. Now, when we were studying that, the findings we got, we considered several factors. We looked at the element of entertainment, credibility of the advertiser, how informative the message is it causing any irritation, is it personalized enough, right? So we looked at all these factors and we tried to understand how it affects consumers' willingness to accept mobile advertising messages. Now, in addition to these factors, we looked at, is there any difference across countries, say developing or developed country? Then type of consumers, are they students or professionals? Then we also looked at type of advertisement. Is it graphic-based, picture-based, image-based advertising or just some random text? Then male versus female. Now, there were some important findings that we found. Take entertainment. Now, entertainment element of a mobile advertising message was more important for female consumers than male consumers, which means that if we are personalizing an ad, we want that ad to be successful in a way that if a consumer watches a particular ad, say text or image, then they should go and buy the product. That is the success of an advertising message. And we found that if there's an element of entertainment, then female consumers are more receptive to such advertisement messages compared to males. Similarly, we found that younger participants were more inclined towards mobile advertising messages than older participants in our research. The reason was elderly population, they do not trust much in online platforms. They are more old school, and there are reasons why they are like that. So, looking at different sort of outcomes, how consumers from a particular social group reacts to a particular message helps us understand how we should design advertisement, considering the importance of elements that consumers consider they are. For example, entertainment. Now, entertainment is important for youngsters, but for elderly customers, informativeness of a message is more important than any other element. Now, when we have those insights, we analyze, we try to understand that if we want to personalize ad, because say in digital technologies, if we use laptops or computers or tabs or mobile phones, for brands, it is very comparatively easier to personalize their ads or the product that they want to sell to consumers based on the customer profile, based on the personal information about consumers that we collect through digital platforms. Now, when we have those insights help us address, say, 95% of the population's preferences in our ad or in our product. And then we accordingly design the product or our ad according to those preferences. And then when those customers are targeted using personalized advertisement or the product that is made for them, then the likelihood of that product or ad being successful is much, much higher than bombarding everyone with irrelevant, non-personalized advertisements. That's the importance of understanding consumer behavior.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't make sense for a brand to try and target everyone if that's not their target audience, right? But for smaller scale businesses who may not have sufficient data of their own to analyze, what would you recommend starting out with?
For smaller businesses, with digital media, it has become very affordable, very cheaper, I would say, to get to know your consumers. Even smaller businesses, they usually have their social media page or their Google account where people can, rate or comment on how that business is performed, how a particular customer was served by a business. So I think using social media accounts or Google as a platform, then trying to get consumer reviews will be an affordable way, because that gives real insights instead of going through a large scale marketing research firm, getting your consumers interviewed or surveyed and then getting all the insights through that. I think small businesses have a fantastic opportunity provided by digital media, because social media, everyone uses almost everyone uses social media, and they can gain insights through that. So I think it is not the traditional ways of understanding consumer behavior. Now that is a past. Now we have advanced much. It is 2024, right? So we don't need to specifically restrict to surveys or interviews, right? We can gain real life, real time insights from our consumers with so many methods that I was talking about.
So we've been discussing a lot about how consumer behavior is so reliant on this type of data. Is there any way for businesses to conduct consumer behavior analysis and integration in the initial stages of a business, like the earlier stages?
If I correctly understood your question, it is about how they can analyze the data and how they can inform their business decisions at different stages of business, right?
More about the starting point of a business when, they have not yet launched a product. How would they then be able to gather information about what this, their ideal like consumer base would be behaving like?
Yeah, so I think considering the size of the business, small business or medium or large scale businesses, when we talk about gaining insights into consumer behavior, it's not always that we need primary data. Primary data means we design a questionnaire or we have a strategy in place and we want to interview people, we want to ask their opinion directly or through market research. That is primary data. Now, it's not always that we need primary data. Sometimes secondary data will be very, very helpful, unless the product is a state-of-the-art product, a new product which world has not yet seen, like how we saw iPhone in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Unless the product is like that, there are sources where we can get information about how consumers would react to a product. And those secondary information sources are some case studies about different businesses, how consumers reacted to the launch of another similar product in the past. Now we can easily gain information about that. That is secondary data for analysis. Then we can also look at some business reports where they explain about the information, say a product or a particular business operation. Then we can study some local businesses, because for that we don't need to have full-fledged research. There are secondary sources. How many customers visit a particular business? What is the footfall? Mm-hmm. Or how they say if there's a new restaurant opened in the area, there are consumers who are eager to visit every new restaurant that opens, right? Now, mm-hmm. It is, I think there are secondary data sources available that help us understand that if a similar business or product was launched in the past, how successful that business is. And for that, we can refer to, say Google page of that particular business, where we are able to make sense of how consumers are reacting to the business. And specifically at the start, I think that is important. And in addition to that, to understand where we should start our business, the location. For that, again, we have secondary data available, Australian Bureau of Statistics or census data that help us understand the concentration of population, a particular type of population in a suburb or a particular region, right? So there are secondary information sources that businesses can use and then gain insights, and that they can incorporate, the actions or strategies that were adopted by other businesses into their own business.
Yeah, I have to second the ABS tip. I'm not sure if there's something like an equivalent in every other part of the world. I can't imagine every single country has the same thing, but the ABS has some great data sets available and really extensive collection of it, just available for public access. And the best thing ever is to put this in a data wrapper or a data visualizer and be able to see all of that in graphic format, and that's just that just makes things a lot easier as well.
Yeah. So about data visualizers, I had this in my mind. I forgot. Anyways, so we have free data analysis tools available online where we can input raw data, say customer reviews. If we have 3,000 customer reviews collected from, say, Airbnb, where we want to see how consumers behave in business peer-to-peer accommodation industry, P2P industry, which is Airbnb and other platforms. So if we have that data, we can put that data, raw data. We don't need to sort the data, or, we don't need a researcher expertise to process the data. We will simply copy and paste to the data visualizer. It will give us themes. What are the key areas that are being talked about in those reviews? And now looking at that raw data, the findings that we gain from raw data, that also gives insights. We shortlist major themes, which give us a rough idea on what is the overall trend of what people are talking about in online media.
Yeah, it's so great how now there are all these tools available to us that that weren't so accessible years ago. Now, how are the consumer preferences and behaviors? How have they been evolving throughout the digital age? We talked a little bit about this with the iPhone 7 and how people, oh, not iPhone 7, sorry, that was a different thing. The iPhone in 2007 is what we're talking about then. Yeah, we saw how consumer behavior was so different back then. So how do you see consumer preferences and behaviors changing in the next 5 or 10 years?
I think that is very tricky question. But looking at how much progress we have made over the past, say, a couple of decades, starting from early 2000, 2024, it is very important. It has been always important to get to know consumers, what they want, what they need. Talking about consumer behavior, I think now it is very easy for consumers to complain about a particular, say, problem or service failure in when dealing with the customer. Now, considering that it is, yes, obviously there can always be disagreements between businesses and customers. We won't say who is the who is responsible for that disagreement. Sometimes it is business, other times consumer can be responsible as well. But ultimately, what happens? Responsibility goes to business because they would have handled it differently. Now, considering that the reputation of a business is just one click away, if something goes wrong, consumers will react. And I'm not sure if you have noticed this, but wherever there is a negative review on a particular page, you will see that following that review, all the reviews or most of the reviews will be negative. But if there is a positive review, then there will be majority of the positive reviews. This means that it ignites a trend. When someone posts a negative review about the business, then everyone starts talking negatively about the business, even though they had a positive or negative experience with the business. Now, considering that, I think it is very important to exactly understand what consumers perceive about the business, what their expectations are, and trying everything best possible to meet those expectations. Now, there are multiple ways. First is we won't set expectations too high, which means customers' expectations are not too high, but when we perform better than the expectations, then that results in a very favorable attitude from consumer side. So first thing, then businesses can try not to set expectations high, but perform better.
Yeah.
Second, try to minimize any negative word of mouth. How they can do that, making sure that they know their customer well. They do not cross the limit that a customer wants them not to. How they can do that, when we talk about personalization or exactly getting to know what consumers want, we need personal information. We need to know a consumer. That means that we need to ask some questions for companies' records. According to those records, we will profile customers and then we will target customers accordingly. Now, when consumers do not want a business to cross a limit, then business should not. For example, there was a case when, I think this is very common. Many businesses, they send messages on birthdays to their customers.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an incident when a business sent birthday message to a customer. And customer was, they were planning a family surprise party because the business sent birthday message. That surprise was no more surprise, which means that business has crossed that privacy limit.
Yeah.
Although they did not intend to do that, but they crossed the limit, which means that before deciding to send such messages, they can take consent from consumer, which clarifies the expectations from both sides and the limits. This means that the likelihood of having a customer reacting, unfavorably reacting towards the business is less. So I think considering how invasive our digital technology can be, yes, we can use it to its maximum potential. But at the same time, we need to understand that there is a very thin line between personalization and invasion into customers' personal space. So if businesses understand that, I think that will help keep customers and that will help minimize any negative feedback from consumers.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. So thank you for sharing all of that. Now let's talk about some practices and habits that we can do. So what habit, activity, or exercise would you recommend doing in order to stay ahead of the curve and adapt to consumer behavior?
I think first of all, we need to, as a small business, if we are operating in a particular suburb or a city, we need to be on top of the changing demographics in the area, which means that, as I said, ABS in Australia is a fantastic platform where we can keep ourselves up to date about the changing trends of population. Then to be on top of the industry, where the industry is going. For example, we have in the past, we have an example from Nokia. Now, Nokia mobile phone, there was a time when Nokia was ruling the mobile phone industry overall market. But for some reason, Nokia did not keep up with the changing trends. I think this is a failure from R&D department who could not foresee what a future's mobile phone would look like. But Steve Jobs was smart. He could see how the future could be, right? Then smartphone came in and Nokia was wiped out of the market. Why? Because they did not keep up with the changing trends. They could not foresee what is likely to happen in the future. Now, how we do that, we need to know customers' interests. Depending on which industry we are operating in, we can look at industry-relevant reports or magazines, what is happening in the area at the moment. any research and developments within that industry, like say automobile industry, where we have electric cars now. Now almost every known brand has started the production of electric vehicles. Why? Because people are into that, right? But if they don't do, they cannot keep up with the industry, which means eventually, if a business does not keep up with the industry trends, they will be wiped out of the competition in the market. So it is very important to have an up-to-date information about the trends related to consumers, related to what other competitors within our local area where we are directly competing, what other competitors are doing, and how consumers are responding to any strategies applied by those competitors. Now, if we look at it from theoretical point of view, we call it first mover advantage. This means that sometimes we want to be first in the market, but that doesn't always work. Sometimes we need to sit back and see, let our competitor jump into the market, and then we see how did they go. Accordingly, we make strategy to overcome any weaknesses that our competitor had. Then we launch our product in the business. By overcoming all those weaknesses, this means that still we are competitive in the market. So the key is keep yourself up to date with the changing trends within the industry and changing trends of customer preferences within your own industry.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us today, Haroon. Now, let's move on to the open mic section. And this is your chance to talk about anything that you are passionate about that doesn't have to be related to the topics. So the floor is yours. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. I think there is a lot I could talk, but I will, considering time, I think I will be as brief as possible. I think it is very important for us as an individual to understand what our interests are. Specifically, I think most of the audience that will have for this recording, they will be very enthusiastic entrepreneurs or maybe students who want to, decide what they want to do in their future. I think it is very important to getting to know yourself first, what as a person I am, what my capabilities are, what my interests are, what are my strengths and weaknesses, what is my passion. If I know that, I think I am in a better position to decide what I want to do in the future. And then no matter if I become a professor, if I become a manager, if I become an entrepreneur, or if I become, adopt any field, if I know myself, if I know my capabilities, if I know my strengths, I think having that in mind and then starting a career along that line will help me excel in my professional and, of course, personal life as well.
Yeah, well, that's really good advice. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us and spending your time with us today, Haroon. If our listeners want to find out more about you and what you do, where can they go?
So I think I am on LinkedIn. People can reach out to me, Dr. Haroon Iqbal Maseeh. That's my name. If they simply Google me, they can find my university page, my social media, and can message me on social media or email me if I can be of any help.
All right, amazing. We'll link those in the show notes for everyone to access. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Once again, a great thank you to Haroon for joining us today. And we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you so much, Marie.
You've been listening to Wealth Pathways, the Affluence Science Insights Podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes are available from 10 life management perspectives and can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and other podcasting apps available on your devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, share, and subscribe to our channel so that other people can find it and we can continue to provide quality content. More of our work can be found on our website at affluent.lifemanagementsciencelabs.com, where you can join our movement. I'm Marie Stella. Thanks for tuning in.